before I go into some more zone, this is debating whether to do this or not, but all right. Going to go back to the exact same map. All right, keeping that in mind. Here we go. There seems to be an aversion in the Call of Duty community to using the Kilo, primarily because the Kilo is the first gun that was given to you in the game. It is not specialized to an extreme
deathmatch
in the directions
Jackals,
that
let's hunt.
the Odin or an M13 are. And simply because it was given as the perfect all-around gun right off the bat, there seems to be like a, let's not use this. And for the most part, at least last time I checked and for personal experience, the Kilo has nearly the exact same range as the M4. It has a fraction of the general recoil. It doesn't have the last little drop of punch that the M4 has at some longer ranges, but in my opinion, it has personally always been better than M4. I think there are some stats in there that have to do with like a limb damage and other stuff that are why the M4 finally was over it, but I just found the Kilo to be better to use. I'm in the minority on that. And there may be some base to that, but it was always good. Anyway, here's the Kilo. Here's the recoil. Two bullets on point, 2 to 3, way off point, the rest in this little cloud, and it kicks up and to the left.
No shot.
Okay, no difference other than a 4X optic. Side note, at this, attempting to hit someone with a headshot with this sight at these ranges is enough to drive somebody insane. When you... Some of this is what people call muscle memory, where like they just know that they're doing this thing. But like I was saying earlier, when you have it on point, and you go to aim and it kicks it randomly to different points, it's enough to drive somebody crazy. Okay. One on point, even worse. I'm strongly suspecting that is actually a difference. I would have to... These things are weird.
No ammo!
This one is actually... looks like it's even worse. Okay. Whatever the case, there you go. They're the two things. Alright. Alright, so what I'm going to do here... when you go to pick your gun loadout, now, obviously, I'm going to go ahead and record this and say that, whether people want to admit it or not, what a lot of these people are doing in the community, the gamers, whatever, the player base, they like to sound like they know what they're doing by copying somebody who knows what who presents it that they knew what they were doing. So everything follows a trickle-down pyramid of what the pros supposedly were doing that comes down the pipeline. Whether it's actually doing anything or not. Like the 10mm ammo on the MP5. What the 10mm ammo should have been doing on the MP5 was changing the arc on the bullets on the launch and the drop. And I cannot tell that it did any such thing. Okay, so that said, from every gun that I've tested, if you look at two extreme ways of playing Call of Duty, one of them is camping, pre-aiming, even lying down on the ground, at which point you could pray to God that they could get it right and not make your recoil worse while you're crouching. But camping, sniping, setting up, posting up, whatever, those are all perfectly valid. It's just that it gets incredibly boring when you're trying to play a scoring game. It's incredibly frustrating. There is no time to check every corner. There's no time to check every building. People just want to get into it and play. And when they go to do that and somebody is hiding out in the corner, it's so non-aggressive and passive sneaky that it's like it just ruins the flow of the game. But whatever, there are times and places to do it. But if you are not stationary, if you're not playing a tactical, stationary, hit accuracy type gameplay, and you're actually running around, those are the two extremes. And for most people, they want to be running around and doing stuff. If you are anything but completely stationary, and what people are not telling everybody is that your sprint to fire is losing you more than just about anything. When you're running and you decide you're in Piccadilly and you're gonna run down past the bus or whatever, and as you round a corner you see them and you're pulling your gun up and you're shooting, it does not matter virtually the 90% of these guns in the game, you have already lost the gunfight to anybody who is already on point targeting you. So your sprint to fire is losing you up to easily 5 bullets before you can ever get a shot landed on somebody. And that is definitively, at most ranges, well in the time to kill. You are just effectively dead. When you couple that with lag compensation, frame interpolation, state interpolation, all this other stuff, you are just dead. By far, the single biggest delay in this game that matters is sprint to fire. The next up is the ADS time, because slamming on the 2 buttons is not doing you a damn bit of good. Maybe 1 bullet on some guns. When you actually go in to shoot and you think you're going to speed it up by slamming on your 2 triggers at the same time, it is not really helping. That is easily losing you 2 to 3 out of 5 bullets. So you have one thing that's losing up to 5 before you can even fire. You have another thing that is losing you 2 out of 5 easily on any gun. So, your number one thing, if at all possible, that you want to do is reduce your sprint to fire. The number 2 thing you want to do is reduce your ADS time. The next thing that you need to be doing, and this is difficult for me because I have completely effed stats. I have been on major streaks. I have played with some of the top people in the world through one avenue or another. I have routinely, on a decent team, come out with 3 times the KD of many of those people. Whatever. I play public lobbies and get steamrolled all the time. I next to never go negative. The vast majority of the time, I have a 2 or 3 plus KD. I've been on multiple gun streak, multiple sniper's nests, multiple gunships per match. I completely go off, and then I'll have rounds just shit. On this game this year, my stats, all of my KD has been thoroughly damaged by Hardpoint, Headquarters, which have just been a shit show of awfulness. I have had hundreds upon hundreds. I played this game for nearly 30 days this year. And I have had matches where over and over, not a single person would capture the objective. They all just went for kills. I've never seen anything like it in the entire time I've ever played Call of Duty. The rest of it has been damaged by ground. In fact, I'm just not going to do it now. I'll pull up stats. As best I can tell, Ground War is running on a different server cycle, and between Hardpoint, Headquarters, and Ground War, my KD was just permanently damaged. I ended up leaving so many matches that I just freaking... I was just not going to sit around. I'm not going to go in and be 6-0 and have 2 VTOLs, an attack chopper, a white phosphorus, and a gunship laid out on me. I just leave. I leave about, for me, over the course of like 4 hours in a day playing, I leave about 3 matches. Over the course of 10 months, 10 months by 30 days is 300 days, 3 matches a day. That was about 1,000 losses. I easily chalked up over the course of playing 4 hours a day for 10 months, 1,000 losses on leaving matches. I just stopped. I've never done that before in the history of Call of Duty. I can go back through my stats from any previous year and you'll never see anything remotely like that. Primarily because of the complete, literal, living garbage that they gave us as matchmaking this year. So whatever, if anybody ever happens to listen to this, this game was just face-planted from day one by the worst matchmaking, lobby-making junk. It is a complete scam. It is absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, my point is it's difficult if your stats are not good on the board, but I have hundreds of hours of gameplay that show what I do when I go into a game. And I played with really good people, and we've won, and so whatever. Okay, anyway. Picking a gun loadout, which was the entire point of that. If you look at reducing your sprint to fire, if you are not planning to camp, if you are not planning to post up, and I'm going to say right off the bat, if you want to do that, go for it. I can give a damn less. I am not going to go into plunder and sit on a building for 20 minutes, which is the thing that half the lobbies are doing. It is insane. It's the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to do that. If you're not planning to camp, post up, lie down, sit in the field, do whatever like PUBG people. If you aren't planning to play Rainbow Siege 6 every day on here, if you want to actually run around, the number one thing would be to reduce your sprint to fire. And there are only 2 attachments in here that, by at least the stat listing, reduce your sprint to fire. There is a very good chance, without having a slow motion camera, I do not know for sure, that the short barrels are affecting that. It doesn't say that it does that. I don't know. It feels like it does. because these barrels definitively proven affect the hip fire. It does not say that they do. If you go to the underbarrel, a Merc says it adjusts hip fire accuracy. When you go to the barrels, it says nothing about hip fire accuracy, and they definitively, right on screen, I can show you here, that they affect it. Here we go. Go to 19.8.
Reloading. Stand.
Okay, this is long barrel on the Kilo. Getting on a sidetrack here. This is just all such a headache, and it comes down to the Infinity Ward development team just literally face planting themselves. I understand they were exhausted. I understand this was an epic project, but you cannot botch fundamental stats. Whatever. Okay. Here's a long barrel. I'm going to stand right here in front of this little sign. I'm going to point over here. This is standing hip fire. This is walking hip fire. Massive. Okay, how can I show this? Okay. On standing right here, on standing hip fire, pointing exactly at the middle of the block, you can see that each of the left and right extremes of the crosshairs reach nearly to the middle of the next blocks. Keeping that visual in mind, go in here and switch it to the short barrel. Oh, actually, this one doesn't have the short barrel. They're all... Oh, goodness, all of these are long barrels. I can't do it. This one is should be the shortest one of any of them. Let's see what it is. Okay, we go right back to the same spot. Testament of mortality right there at the same spot. Alright. Okay, now just look at this. Straight at the middle, at the exact same distance, pointing right at it, standing hip fire. Nowhere even remotely the same hip fire. Let's see if the hip fire is actually accurate. You can see this is nowhere remotely near the middle of the second blocks. This is like a 20% reduction in hip fire. Yeah, this is called hip fire recoil. In the beta, that thing right there, where it's bouncing as it's doing it, in the box, that was called hip fire recoil. And each gun had a different hip fire recoil. Whatever. Oh, gosh. I guess you can see that it was pretty much right on. There's nothing beyond that general box there. Absolutely awful. Just horrible. All I can assume at this point is that the Infinity Ward team was essentially like run by idiots, beaten like slaves, strung out like fucking morons. Their last ditch was freaking noses full of meth, freaking dinner with some cocaine. The elite powerhouses freaking were too stupid to realize what was going on while they were enjoying a meatball and spaghetti. I don't know. One way or another, it's affecting the hipfire box. That's the genuine hipfire box that does something about it. Okay. So anyway, there's a very good chance these things, without having a high-speed camera, are affecting the sprint to fire rate. But seeing as there's no way to tell that, there are only two attachments given as the sprint fire. What I'm presenting is that if you're planning to play anything that's not camping, anything remotely not camping, anything that's not lying on the ground pre-aiming, your sprint to fire is the single most important thing. It has the most baseline effect. It is literally a 5-to-2 difference in bullets over ADS. So, there are only 2 listed attachments that affect sprint fire. One is the stipple grip tape. One is the 5 milliwatt laser. From personal experience, I would not remotely, in any mode of Call of Duty, worry about the laser in close quarter combat. If you're moving, if you're running, if you're going, just do it. Now, if you stand there at the door and point the laser at the door, whatever, they're going to throw a grenade at you. But if you're all in motion, it's so fast-paced, they are just not going to notice. The problem with this is the pros cannot use it, so they use stipple grip. Now, if the barrels did have an effect on it, it would be the short barrels with the reduced hipfire box. But I went in and tested these things to the point of nausea with the smallest hipfire boxes on the SMGs, the Uzi, the MP5, and I think the MP7. There are a few of them that are incredibly small, but the Uzi and MP5 definitively are the smallest. And when I went in and actually put these into play using the smaller barrel, even though it had a reduced hipfire box, something is going on with the bullet velocity and the hit registration. They were absolutely horrible. I do not know that there is ever any I have used these on heavy guns. I've used the short barrels on heavy guns to lighten the load and reduce the ADS time, and they genuinely did seem to be pretty awful. I can say that on a pure hipfire, no ADS test of the lowest hipfire, most accurate SMGs, the actual bullet registration and damage registration on the small barrels was atrociously bad. There is a very good chance you should never, under any circumstances whatsoever, use a short barrel on any gun in this game. It may just be plain broken. So, given that, I would not even remotely begin to try to use that for sprint fire. But, okay. First off is the sprint to fire on it. And so that effectively gives you 2 attachments, the stipple grip and the 5 milliwatt. And the difference between those is that you are not allowed in comp to use this sprint to fire. You are allowed to use stippled grip, but as soon as you use stipple grip, and this is my whole point, is that if you set this up as a way to look at this will work for nearly any gun in the game. And in the entire year, I've never seen a single person address any of this. If you based on that, first off, decide, I would not, if you're not comp, I would not for a moment hesitate to use the 5 milliwatt unless the gun has an incredibly heavy ADS or is incredibly inaccurate on idle sway and use the tack laser. If the gun isn't all accurate or it all has a standard ADS and you're not in comp and can use a laser, or I'll change this right. Your first decision when setting up a gun should thereby be, am I playing comp or am I playing non-comp? If you're playing non-comp, your next decision should be, does the gun have a heavy ADS? Does it have a heavy idle sway? If it has either of those, look at using a tack laser. But if you're going to use a tack laser and you're non-comp, you're going to have to deal with the fact that laser is going to be blaring all over the place. In Warzone, that normally does not matter. And the reason it does not matter, and this is actually really good advice, the reason it does not matter is because, 1, it's a large map. 2, you have armor. And so when they see that laser and you come around the corner, even if they saw it and shoot you, you still, even if you take a bullet or 2, have armor where you can be on point targeting them and shooting. And that is the big difference. If you use this laser in something like, if you use the TAC laser in something like, whatever that Middle Eastern map is on here. I wish I could remember the maps. But anything on here where you're having walls and buildings and they're going to see the laser beam. In a standard core game mode or in hardcore, you may have just licensed your death. So, that is the first thing. If the gun is heavy or inaccurate and you use a TAC laser, you're going to have to deal with that. And so that may be a very immediate reason to ditch the TAC laser. In Warzone, it next to never really matters. But if it is not heavy, not inaccurate, 5mm wand. And the 5mm wand is even less important in Warzone. I would have to say it's probably one of the single best attachments that could possibly happen in Warzone. If you, in standard modes, as long as you're moving and not standing there next to a door pointing laser at the other side of the door where they're going to grenade you, come around, slide, jump, whatever, you're fine. The 5mm wand is not nearly as intrusive. You could use the 1mm wand, but then if the stats are correct, it does nothing for the sprint to fire. And the entire point of this was putting the sprint to fire first. So there you go, sprint to fire. Because when I tested the sprint to fire out, it cut the sprint to fire in half on every single gun that I used. That means you went from losing 5 bullets down to 2.5. That's like taking a TTK of 500 and reducing it down to 250. Okay, so that said, your other option, and they do apparently stack, is to use the stippled grip. In other words, you do apparently on every gun that I've tested, although again you need a frame-by-frame camera because it is very quick, get a doubled effect from stippled grip and 5mm wand. Now, if somebody comes along and says it's not, my apologies. It's a very close time frame. It's a brief window. But as far as I know, you do get at least extra, as far as I know, doubled reduction in ADS, where you're going down to maybe 2 bullets lost on sprint to fire if you use a 5mm wand and stippled grip. But the problem with doing that, and now this is back to classic Call of Duty, the problem with doing that is that when you reduce that sprint to fire with the stippled grip, that aiming stability really does go out the window. And that's what I was saying earlier, is that when you go to aim, it is already off target, whether you're on target or not, because of the aiming stability, and that is absolutely horrible. You do not want that happening. Contrary to what all these YouTuber people said, it is that important. Aiming stability is right up the top of any gun. You do not want your aim automatically relocating when you go ADS a half body to the side. No way. You want your aim where you want it. That's how you're going to maintain control of your gun and control of your aim. So, stippled grip, if you're going to use it, does that. It also reduces the ADS time. So, if you're going to use stippled grip, your first thing to look at on the gun is what is the baseline raw state of the gun. Does it have a high degree of instability? And if it does, what attachment could I use to increase stability? If you go back to your attachments, no optic is by listing at least going to increase stability. No muzzle attachment is going to increase stability. In fact, nearly all of them are going to decrease it. No ammunition is listed as increasing stability. And even though I've had a number of experiences where heavy ammo seemed to stabilize the entire gun, recoil and aim, that may have just been in my head. I just don't know, but it is certainly not listed. There's nothing in here on aim that says it increases any stability, even though it seems to. I think a lot of people would say that it does. Your barrels, I do not think there's a single barrel in the game that says it increases stability. Optic, muzzle, barrel, ammunition, nothing increases stability. No perks increase stability. There's one that increases your hold breath. That's it. So, if you're going to use the stipple grip, again, this is going right back to putting the sprint to fire first. For anybody who's not camping. In any mode, in any game in Call of Duty. If you put the sprint to fire first, and you have 2 attachments that you can use it for, and one of them reduces stability, and you look at the gun and you say, it's too unstable, I need my aim on point. The categories that are going to increase your stability are your tac laser. Well, if you use that, you can't use the 5mm one. And if you use that, it has a lot of benefits, but it's going to be beaming all over the place. The underbarrel. This is where all of these pro loadouts are going to make sense. Because there are just a few things on here that increase stability. Commando. Used ubiquitously on nearly every gun in the game by the pros. Has no ADS reduction and improves stability. Operator. Oh, no. Ranger. Ranger does recoil control and stability. Now, again, looking at these, you basically have something like vertical recoil, something like horizontal recoil. You have your ADS time, and you have your aim stability. You have one grip that does something like horizontal and stable. You have one grip that does something like vertical and stable. And you have one grip that does neither horizontal nor vertical, but does much more on the stability. Okay. Backing it up a second. Again, keeping the focus on the sprint to fire. You're trying to reduce a 5-bullet loss as low as possible. You're wanting to get it down to running around and being able to get the gun up so that you're only losing 2 to 3 bullets. One attachment is just straight raw laser. The other one loses the stability. You now have 3 attachments on the underbarrel that will affect that. You have one laser. There are only 2 laser options, but if you use the one that does stability, you're exposing yourself severely. In Warzone, it doesn't matter. The other thing that will affect the stability is the stock. The stocks are pretty good. So, in other words here, on this Kilo, there is one stock available that improves stability. And if you look at the little meter there, if these things are remotely correct, this is a big if, they seem to be okay. You see it boosting it by that little smidgen there. For whatever reason, they have it listed as accuracy. It just doesn't matter. It increases the stability a little bit. If it does any more than that, we may never know. But you have something there to increase the stability. So that's it. So you have a Kilo. This is the whole point of this. You have the Kilo. Incredible gun. Overall recoil is very low. The critical shot recoil is so-so, and that's what people aren't talking about. That's why it's not the Growl. That's why it's a different gun. It has its own ammunition type. You're on a straight shot. You normally got 2 bullets on target. even with tap fire, even with low recoil. And not every gun is like that. Some guns have incredible critical shot recoil and horrible after-shot recoil. That after-shot stuff should not matter. The Kilo is basically pretty good. So, one way or another, trying to get the immediate draw time on the gun. The immediate bullets firing. The critical thing being the sprint to fire. If you use the stippled grip, okay, keeping that in mind. The ADS sway, this idle sway, even though it didn't look too bad here, these sights, it says 4X. That is so unintuitively misleading to people. For anybody who, I mean, again, this gets back to this game just being broken and wrong. When the Kilo launched, when the game launched, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Kilo, had a variable sight that said it went up to 12x magnification. No such thing ever existed. They have now patched it and corrected it. So anyway, here's an example of the 4X sight. Okay, there's the little triangle over there, the little sign. That does look about four times larger. Okay, so you're getting a 4 times magnification. So you go over here. Here's the wall. Now, this is a close range. For anybody who works with actual guns, if you go out firing range and see this thing, that is close range. And even then, when you were aiming at these little sights, there was a big bullseye here. Any normal person would use a sight. You zoom in, there it is. That sway right there, even though once you're on target, doesn't look like it's that bad, when you're in motion and it kicks down to the side, let's go. Okay, I'm gonna keep this thing on a line here, and I'm gonna try to keep that on a line. Aim. See how it's up? You see how it's up as high as this? Even though I was on the actual bar, when I aimed, at least that time, it's hard to get it to do it. It bounces up, like for a brief few milliseconds. It is up there. It does this all the time. I have tested it over and over. So that aiming stability, where it seems to be idly, that does not start after you're already on point. It starts the moment that you're aiming down sight. Even though this thing right here says that it's on point, when you aim, it's already up. So, it's a big deal. See, right there. It seems to be completely on point. Up. Down. Up. Down. Down. Up. Up and down. Right on point. Up. Up. Down. To the side. It's all over the place. Okay. So. Basically, my point here, going back, is that even on the Kilo, the idle sway is really, whether you realize it or not, it is going to be messy right. So, that is the baseline idle sway at a 4x magnification. If you go in and put stippled grip, look at how much it's reducing the control bar. That is the idle sway bar. And it is taking off as much as it's adding on the sprint fire and ADS. If you go over here to the laser on the 5 milliwatt, for whatever god-awful reason, even though it says nothing about control, it's reducing the bar by nearly the same amount. And again, this is just enough to drive somebody insane. Nowhere on these stats does it have a con listed as idle sway. And when I have actually gone in and tested and played this, it does appear to be messing up idle sway and hit registration. I cannot, I'm not sure where it's happening, but I have gone in to use it, and it is like the gun is just literally, either the bullets aren't hitting, the sway is off, something is going wrong on the gun with 5mm. But it definitively does improve the sprint to fire. So, I have no idea what exactly it's doing. It does definitively appear to be messing something up. I have had personal conversations over and over with Drifter and Exclusive Ace and other people like Jay God and people for years. And, I mean, personal on the level of the internet or on stream or something. And this has never even yet been tackled. It's all the bullshit in these games. But one way or the other, something, to my knowledge, is in fact going wrong. It is not listed. It does have an effect. It is there on the stat bar. But it does, after multiple tests with every gun I've ever tried, reduce the sprint to fire enough to matter. It is one of, to me, the best attachments in the entire game, as long as you aren't playing comp. So, set that up. If you're attempting to stack your sprint to fire, keep in mind that your next stat up, and I'm going to put a big 3 here. I'm going to say, personally speaking, the 3 most powerful things that are going to be affecting your gun selection should be sprint to fire, 1, ADS, 2, aiming stability, 3. The ADS and the aiming stability could probably swap out, but still heavily would lean towards aiming stability being 3rd. The sprint to fire and ADS time are just that important. You are going to win so many gunfights if you can hit your shots by simply beating someone to the draw if you were attempting to do anything other than camp. It is that powerful. You are talking about up to 5 bullets on sprint to fire and 2 or 3 on ADS. I'm not sure exactly how the 2 stack without testing every gun in the game. They seem to blend it a little bit, even though the numbers don't say that they do. You're looking at easily time to kill at the time the sprint fire and ADS kick in. And that was the whole point of the ordeal earlier, was to say that if you try to slam on the 2 buttons at the same time, it does not work. It has next to 0 effect, and you are thereby, when you're running around, losing easily half the time to the full time to kill against an adversary who's already aiming at you. So, stack up these 2. Now, what does that say that it does? Look at our aiming stability. The aiming stability is already now just light years below. So let's see what that looks like. Have a same exact gun. I'm going to go in with aiming stability. Oh, I picked the right one. Okay, here we go. Now, this is kitted. This is kitted for maximum sprint fire, and at 5mm what is increasing the hip fire. Now, just look at this. Look at where we are on hip fire compared to earlier. If anybody happens to be watching this and noticed the hip fire box earlier on the baseline kilo with a standard, actually that was long barrel, the hip fire was literally over to nearly halfway of the other boxes. What that means is that if you are running around and aiming at somebody and you can't quite get it on target, and you go to ADS, and you know that hitting the same 2 doesn't do anything, you are still reducing the window of that that bullet spread by like, I mean, this is like nearly like I mean, like a 40% reduction or something. If it was half, it would be fully to the bar. So like this is an incredible reduction on the hip fire, and that's not even using the Merc 4. So when you go to aim, you're going to be focusing in your window here by like half that. Now, if the gun is fully, it's all an issue of, you know, when you're shooting, it's going to be going right there, and your recoil on this is going to be straight up. So that horizontal spread doesn't matter so much, but when you're trying to get on target and you're running, that is going to matter, because it's basically saying that the bullet is going to hit somewhere in that window. So if you can get that little box over somebody, there is a very good chance as you go to snap in that it's going to hit. It's like literally twice the chances. It's hard to say it's twice, but it is definitely going to improve it. Okay, so anyway, there's that. And do I still have my stuff painted here? Okay. Paint spot. And I'm going to run. Nearly instantaneous. I mean, it's like night and day. This is like 1/5 of the total distance before the double sprint fire. You're talking about like maybe a 1 bullet delay. Still the same. It's like nearly instantaneous. This is like, again, you'd have to get out of frame by frame camera. But by using these 2 attachments, you have just reduced a 5 bullet delay down to possibly 1 bullet on a near instantaneous fire rate, with a hitbox that is down to close to 50% of what it was before. Just immeasurable. If you can run around and get on target like this, this is what you want to be doing. In Call of Duty, unless you're camping, this is what you want to be doing. Now, the problem with this, again, is right back to the aim stability. So, take a look at the aim stability. It's 4x on the keyboard. That is, regardless of the stat bar on this gun, on this site, as clearly evident from the video, next to 0. I mean, this is no substantial difference. I mean, it's a little bit, I can feel it, that it's drifting a little bit more, but that is not substantially different than it was a minute ago without either of them. This is going to be different for every single gun. Oh my goodness, I'm up nearly an hour now. Okay, one way or the other, with these 2 attachments on sprint to fire, and coupled with an ADS reduction on the stipple grip, you have just taken a 5 bullet delay down to a possibly 1 bullet delay. Roughly speaking, you have reduced the hitbox down to 50%, and you have next to no perceivable difference in the aim drift. That is not enough to amount to anything. So, there's that. Now, if you're putting aim stability as 3rd, here are some things you can do. If you're putting aim stability as 3rd, what on here would increase aim stability? There was only one stock. And if you you look at this, the Sniper Pro, contrary to any common sense of a stock, contrary to any other stock that I recall in the game, does not have a single con listed to ADS speed. It says that it's reducing your aim, walking, movement speed. These were supposed to be kitted and set up according to the guns by the devs. I cannot comprehend in a $10 billion project with about 300 people working on it how they messed all this up. But, you know, whatever. It doesn't say it reduces ADS. It's saying that mobility loss is due to aim, walking, movement speed. If you are ideally, and this is just kind of a side note going at it from this angle, when you're doing aim, walking, movement speed, you really shouldn't be worrying about that, because you do not want to be ADS walking. You want to be snapping, snap, crackle, pop. Snap, crackle, pop. Snap, crackle, pop. In Call of Duty, you do not want to be standing there. The one thing that does normally matter is the strafing, and that is what this is being categorized in, is aim, walking, movement speed. But on this game, I cannot say that I have ever seen that really matter that much. As long as you are just pop, 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 all over the place, snapping in, snapping, moving, aim in, let go, aim in, let go. Your aim, walking, movement speed is normally going to be more for, I guess if you're trying to be a mobile quick scoper. But this, so if it's true, here we go. Try this out. There's so many other things in here that factor in, but I'm not going to begin to try and like go over a bunch of side branches. Okay, here we go. Have the same basic hitbox. Same basic gunfire. I honestly cannot tell about ADS. It's just too hard to calculate. But let's look at the stability. Yes, it's like a third of what it was. So, it's very difficult to tell with this ADS time if it's actually being reduced. If it's being increased by the stock the way they normally are, I just cannot tell that. I would have to pull out a calculator, and that's the point of why they're supposed to have correct stat bars to begin with, because no normal person on God's given freaking green fucking goddamn earth would have time to do all that in this fucking game. But you can definitively see that it is pinpoint. So, take a brief break for a second, be right back. Okie dokie. Alright, so you now have a fairly low recoil gun with an incredible sprint to fire and ADS time with pinpoint accuracy. That then leaves the question of, well, what about alternative loadouts at this point? I'm using the 4X stock here to, the 4X scope here. I'm using the 4X scope here to demonstrate the aiming stability, because it's going to matter when it comes in. And like I said, in my opinion, there's something very suspect about the hit registration the aim assist, the border locking on these different aim assist types, having to do with the size of the cursor given the target distance and the size of the target, and whether you're using a scope or not. Because it seems like as soon as you use a magnified scope and it blows the image up, that it makes it much harder to hit the same target even though you're aiming at the same space, because the actual target acquisition area has been enlarged to show you the fine details. It is as if the fine details make it harder to hit even though there's no difference in the target. But whatever, I cannot test all that. I'm going to say that, in my opinion, that is a trade secret of why the pros use no scope. They may not know that, but I think that's how that originally started. Originally, there is the ADS time. So if you're looking at, do I know what I'm talking about personally and watching this, there are two alternatives here. One is that no sights are used to improve ADS, which is because ADS and sprint to fire are that important. Or two is because they are secretly making it easier to hit the targets with no scope. And it's probably both. So, anyway, the scope could be dropped at this point, but I'm not going to because it's the purpose of demonstration of aiming stability. Okay. So, realistically speaking, I don't see that the I don't see there's much reason to attempt to aim for more, to kit it for more stability. It's pretty damn stable. And then this gets into the specifics of the gun, which is why I did all this the way I did to begin with. You now have, like I said, incredible sprint to fire. The gun has decent ADS. It's very stable. Out of all of those, the thing that, given those top three, I would do to improve the ADS time on it would be to improve the ADS time. There's no perk that's going to do that. There's no ammunition that's going to do that. When the ammunition's been tested, all the higher... Well, actually, some guns there is ammunition that does that. I think the Holger or the Bruin have a lighter weight ammunition that's to improve the ADS time, I think. Virtually all the ammunition, the higher capacity cartridges, are heavier, and it says that it's going to increase the ADS time. When people have tested it, it was for the mid-size ones next to zero difference, and for the larger ones, it was a decent difference. You can tell it, you can feel it when you do it. Not even going to worry about that. The Kilo has no option. This 100 round would make it just atrocious. It would be like carrying a machine gun cannon. Your barrel would reduce the ADS time. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't. The Kilo, this is where most of the guns have a short barrel that improves the ADS time. These have no such thing. So anything you do on the Kilo, and this is where I would, on every gun, my personal suggestion is that if you are in any way going to be running and gunning and not camping, to do what I just did, start with those three, look at the rest of the gun, and figure out what you need to do. On the Kilo, for example, it is already considered a long-range gun. Everything is actually to increase the range and the bullet velocity. None of these are going to decrease the ADS. So to keep it simple, I'm looking at ADS time. All that's going to make ADS worse. All of these are, at the bare minimum, going to make it worse. Nothing's going to improve it. So barrels, muzzles, ammunition, nothing's going to improve. No perk is going to. That leaves the underbarrel. Every underbarrel attachment is, at the absolute best, going to make it worse. So there is nothing to improve the ADS time. If you wanted to improve the ADS time, you would either have to switch it to the tack laser, or you would have to drop the stock. Keeping those big three in mind, First off, if you switch to the tack laser, you're going to lose the sprint to fire. The sprint to fire on this with the double kit is so incredible. I would be very hard pressed to switch to a tack laser that's visible. In Warzone, the tack laser could be a trade-off where you have the that much higher ADS time and the accuracy. If you were going in Warzone to switch it to the tack laser and give up on some of that sprint to fire, you could drop. I would have to kit it here, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be about the same. You could drop the sniper stock, since the sniper stock kinda, I mean, at least by the stats, doesn't reduce the doesn't increase the ADS time. That probably wouldn't be that bad. So, if you wanted to improve the ADS at this point, you have two options on the Kilo, since there's no barrel. You could throw on a tack laser. You'd be giving up sprint to fire, be improving ADS, you'd be improving stability. You could probably drop the stock at that point, although I'd have to test it, and free up another attachment slot. But your laser is going to be visible, and you aren't going to have the same sprint to fire. But like I said, the sprint to fire and the ADS are going to balance out a little bit. So basically, that decision on ADS time, given stability, ADS, and sprint to fire, is going to come down to, do I mind being visible? Is it worth it to be, like, do I care if the laser's visible? So in Warzone, perfectly good option. Switch the 5mm out to the tack laser, go longer distance. Your tack laser probably at that point will be powerful enough with the ADS you could counterbalance some of the longer barrels. So this gets right back into the original core principle. If you were to take the Kilo into Warzone, given this setup here, given what I was just laying out, and want to switch it to a long-range gun, you could throw on the tack laser, throw on a long barrel, possibly drop the stock, or likewise, if you throw on the long barrel, you can keep the 5mm because it's improving the hip fire, because that is going to give you two extreme polar opposites. It's going to make it so that you don't have to ADS with the heavy barrel so much while you're aiming with the tack laser. It does work at extreme close range, just simply point. There are certain guns like the MP5 where when the hip fire gets very good, with a 5mm and a super reduced hitbox, you barely even have to aim at all. You can just point, no ADS at close range. But those would be two different alternative loadouts. You could throw, if you're wanting to go with range on the Kilo, at this point, your longer barrels in Warzone would increase the ADS that could be counterbalanced by using a tack laser or by dropping the stock. The tack laser is going to do more as far as I know. All of those are different permutations depending on whether you want to, how long you want to go, how quickly you want the ADS to, how low you want to get the ADS, how the tack laser is so accurate that it'll balance out the stock. So, whatever, just some different options right there off the bat. But keeping in mind, back to the roots so nothing gets confusing. Sprint fire first, ADS second, accuracy third. Given the gun, it's right where it needs to be. The accuracy's fine, the sprint to fire is incredible, and the only thing would be to improve the ADS. So, there are some options there. On your stock, there are two stocks here that would lower the ADS. The no stock and the close quarter stock. No stock, I would not even remotely consider in this situation, Some of the people who want to run around sliding all over the place on hardpoint with a kilo, I don't know, whatever. I mean, maybe it's feasible. It might be able to compete with some of the SMGs. I think it would probably beat the AUG. I doubt it can hang with an MP5. I doubt it can hang with a Striker. I doubt it can hang with an Uzi. I doubt it could hang with, I just don't know. I just have to, it would probably be about on par with a Bison. A kilo no stock compared to an SMG would probably be about on par with a Bison. But why? Why would you do that to yourself? You're sacrificing your long range. As soon as you go to do that, you're going to have to start kitting it for recoil. You're going to have to start like doing all kinds of stupid stuff, and it just makes no sense. It's like just being bass backwards. I would not. That's exactly why they just nerfed the no stock, because what it was doing made no sense. So, if anything, if you wanted to improve the aim down sight, you could throw in the close quarter stock. But as soon as you throw down the close quarter stock, you're going to be losing that aiming stability. And just look at how much it says it's losing the aiming stability. I don't know if it actually does that without trying it. What I do know is that when I tested this without the stock to improve the stability, it was horrible. So, if you wanted to switch it over to ADS by doing close quarter stock, seeing as there's no other option here to improve ADS, you would then need to use something on the underbarrel, which is the only other category available to improve the stability. Now, okay, so that's not a bad idea. Those are two alternative configurations. If you go into the underbarrel and you're wanting to improve the aiming stability, let's take a look. If we can trust the bars. The one that's going to provide the single most boost to the stability is the tactical grip, right there. Where is it? It's now short of the baseline. The original baseline the gun started out with, through all of these configurations, it's now short of the baseline. Take that off and switch it back to Sniper Pro. Oh, now here you're coming up with something weird. The Sniper Pro is also short of the baseline. Which one's shorter? Okay. Since the tactical does, at least by listing, nothing to the aiming stability, what you're getting here is a boost in ADS, a boost in stability, but you're using 2 slots instead of just the sniper barrel. So you're going to have, by using 2 slots now, you're going to have faster ADS and higher stability. Let's see what that does. Depends on if you, at this point, that's basically so far coming down to whether you bind using 2 slots for it. Now, again, keeping in mind, this is a generally speaking low recoil, high damage gun with essentially super space age sleek technology. This is a really good gun. Here you go. Hip fire is still totally on point. ADS is totally on point. Ugh. This is the point where these stats just do not seem to be reliable at all. this thing is supposed to be being more accurate than with the stock. And, I mean, without really being able to test it, oh my gosh, this just looks absolutely horrible. And, I mean, maybe I'm flipping my noodle here, but I do not think that is correct. That drift, okay, I'm just going to leave it right here. Let's see where I'm standing. Oh, it's just all over the place. It is down. It is as far as that bullet below the line every time. Alright, let's see. Drop that and throw it onto the Sniper Pro. It does not feel like I'm moving as quickly. I'd have to look back at those stat bars. It does not feel like I'm moving as quickly. It feels like the ADS is slowed just as much as the movement. I'm going to go ahead over here. Sniper Pro. That hip fire box may actually be smaller. I'm going to go ahead and aim in. No. Those are, this is completely, as you can clearly see here, it is nowhere remotely bobbing down at the level that it was before. That constant drifting, I mean, it's a little bit, it does at the extremes start to go down there, but that is a definitively lighter drift than the other. At least the best I can tell it is. So, let's see, where is it? It is right there with this. That's definitively supposed to be closer. It's like it even has hip fire sway now. Oh gosh, my hand's gonna explode. This, to me, looks like this is a much faster rate. It looks like the extremes are pretty much the same, but the actual bobbing rate is faster, as best I can tell. So, using 2 attachment slots, it does have faster ADS time. But as you can see, okay, if I go in here, you can see it's just all over the place when I go to aim. Down to the right, up to the top, down to the right, bobbing up to the right. It's just every time you snap on, it's at a different location. You can feel it bobbing, you can see it, and when you're in actual motion and you're trying to aim, it's going to be even worse. Okay, so I'm going to say that by common sense, it does seem correct. It seems at this point, the stock, by any normal gunsmith's function, the stock is better. And that is what I ended up going with last time. So, that is stability. The only option for ADS was that. I'm not kidding it for Warzone. I'm not wanting the laser to be visible. Okay, so here we are. Now, it's going to get into, next step is going to be whether I want the sight or not. If you go with a quicker sight, you aren't going to have as much ADS time, which is not so bad. That just basically boils down to the sights are the most common sense thing. If you know that you are going to try to get people to longer distance, you can normally slow things down because of the bullet velocity, the travel time, the pre-positioning, the pre-aiming. Okay, here's with the scout. And the stock, look at that. Just perfect. It's a little bit over, I mean, it still wobbles a little bit, but okay, so nice ADS time, accurate, nice hip fire. All right. Oh, it's still mobbing. All right. Yeah, it's when you actually go to aim in that you notice that how much it's actually doing it. Like, I'm just trying to hit this freaking bottom thing right here. Oh, so it's up above it, it's down below it. Okay, here comes the, it's that drift. You're actually going to acquire the target. Oh my goodness, come on. I'm just trying to hit it right there. Overrides your actual, like, directional stuff too. Okay, here we go. Here's the recoil. All effective purposes, at this point, aiming at that distance on a simple 5-shot spread, you do not need absolutely nothing. Straight vertical. There's absolutely no reason that you have to use anything. So. Okay, again, back to it. Everything's kind of out of the way. If you're in Warzone, you could go with the longer barrel. It would do some recoil control. Every time I've ever tested, it was right. It like did nearly as much as the compensator. It's the next best thing to the compensator normally. The powerful ones at least, like the maximum. At least as far as keeping the overall bounce down. Normally, it's about on par with the Merc Grip. Merc Grip is now, I guess, been banned from the Pro League stuff. But whatever. The Merc Grip is going to improve the hip fire even more. The barrel is going to improve the long range with the damage and the velocity. So again, it's really a Warzone question at this point. You don't normally need that damage and velocity so much in any kind of core game, except in the super big maps. So, not going to worry about that. The recoil is basically okay. What I would worry about at this point is that stability. I would like the stability to be higher. So, what if I put the tactical on? What is going to happen? That is the maximum stability. All these people for the past 10 months have said the tactical is the most useless attachment. Does no good. That is completely bogus. That is not true. I'm sorry, you guys. I mean, I hate to say it. I know you guys can score some high kill games, but you were doing that, typically speaking, with a bunch of noobs. You were doing that with public lobbies. I mean, I'm going to leave it at that. All right. I think this will speak for itself when it comes down to target acquisition. There you go. Has no reduction in ADS time. It is completely on point. I don't have to correct for anything. It's like having a tack laser. If you compare that to a second ago of attempting to get on target, when I'm running around and go boom, and there is no reduction in ADS time, and I am simply locked on target. I mean, it's like literally having a spoke pointing from that point to my fucking gun with zero adjustment whatsoever, with no auto drift. That's a big deal. That's how I hit a ton of headshots. I streamed yesterday quite a few times, and the day before, I nailed headshots with every gun in the game over and over and over, because it simply locked on target. Well, it didn't lock on target. I mean, I aimed it on target, at least as far as I know. There you go. That. Again, you should never, under any circumstances, be doing anything where this would matter. That should never be happening. Ever. with any gun. The only thing you should ever be doing is this. Or this. That's going down the street. And as you can see, it's incredibly hard to keep focus. The reason it's drifting over the side is because I'm attempting to pull down and slightly my
No ammo!
And in fact, in order to do it, I have to use both sticks at the same time. Yeah, I could, personally speaking, get better at that, but that's what it's doing. Okay. Oh my goodness, take a break here for a second. Okay, what I'm going to do now is, rather than using the tactical grip, which is incredible, I now have, if I'm trying to get that aiming stability, I have two other options. And this is the most confusing, weird thing in the entire game. There are only 3 grips on this gun. On this underbarrel grip. There are only 3 underbarrel grips on this gun that affect the aiming stability, which is what I'm wanting. One of them's commando, one of them's tactical, and one of them's ranger. The operator is purely for recoil. This gun does not need that. At least, I'm going to say for the time being, it doesn't need it. The Merc is for the hip fire accuracy and the recoil control. So of all the grips, there are 2 that have nothing to do with aim stability, which is what I'm wanting. The operator and the Merc. Again, this is why their game's broken AF. The Merc is not real. It actually boosts your movement speed. It has an incredible critical shot recoil reduction. It does a real hip fire control. It apparently has a secret stat that has to do with hip fire recoil control, where when you're doing the hip fire, it's bouncing and the box size is fluctuating. It reduces all that. From the actual first launch of the game, I had set the Merc on every single fucking gun, regardless of anybody telling me that, because it worked. So whatever. I'm not trying to do that now because I want the aim stability. So, there's one that says recoil stabilization. There is one that is the tactical that I'm using, which is excellent. And there's one that's the Ranger. The first big difference between these is that the Ranger is the only one that's going to reduce the ADS time. I don't know how much it reduces it. It does recoil control. That's supposed to be the vertical, apparently. This one doesn't do the ADS. It's absolutely perfect as it is. The Commando is supposed to be apparently the horizontal. What do they actually say? Heavyweight angled grip keeps the weapon steady while aiming, which it will through the stability, and helps maintain control during heavy fire. To my knowledge, if you actually stand there and shoot at the wall, there are not that many guns that you are going to see a horizontal reduction. It will do a horizontal reduction. You will see on many guns a vertical alignment. It will still drift as it goes up, but normally the actual bouncing left and right along that drift, it keeps down. In a minute, I'm going to test out, while I'm thinking of it, the MP7, because the MP7 is the one gun more than any other that, if I'm not mistaken, you can put both the horizontal controls, the muzzle brake, and the commando, and it literally goes just straight up like a beam. But given that, what I think is happening with this thing is that when they designed the game, they put a lot of stuff that people do not know about that has to do with the flinch, the rotation speed, the barrel length, the ADS time, and your bounce off of center given your barrel length, your movement and rotation speed, and your motion. And as far as I know, they really did go to the complicated depth. If you were to actually look at your character model, they used actual, if I'm not mistaken, they put actual sensors on bodysuits and modeled people's bodies. And your character motions are based on a very realistic physical model where the flinch affects different parts of the body. And so when you're actually running and attempt to rotate different lengths of barrel under fire, aiming down sight, they, to my knowledge, did calculate in the angled grip as keeping the gun from bouncing to extreme degrees while you're attempting to aim, and especially under flinch fire, as far as I know. And what that means is not just what it says here on the stats. When you use the commando, and part of the reason, and this also goes for the sliding motions, the jumping motions, anything in rotation. It has a lot to do with the rotation and the flinch. Rotation, barrel length, and flinch. That it is attempting to stabilize the bounce out of the rotation, the barrel length, and the flinch given your motion. And even if you don't see it on the actual thing, I think that it's doing that. So that's one option. The other option would be to use the Ranger grip with the recoil control, which, to my knowledge, pretty much is just the vertical. It's like having that compensator pumping the air out the top of the gun to keep the barrel down. So, before I do any of that, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to drop this crate. Go over here. Oh, actually, I'm going to go clean wall. I'm at about the same distance. I'm going to aim right here. Everything's right on point. Full auto. Poetry in motion. If I am not mistaken, now, by the time I have stacked all of these attachments, for whatever stupid damn reason, I am getting a reduction in recoil. The first two have always been pretty much on point, and again, this is just so important. I'm getting one directly on point, one up and to the left a little bit, a jump, and then the next three. Now, in a high-intensity environment, that may mean I got 2 shots in instead of 5. The big question with that would be, would it do better if I just burst fired? Like, if I just sat here and attempted to tap it, would I do better? Well, you have to keep in mind that the person's running, they're jumping, they're sliding, you're trying to get bullets in. So when you're on, say, that stupid St. Petrograd map, and somebody goes and slides to the side. You're like, oh man, this game fucking sucks, man. Fucking dudes, fucking slid, fucking Well, you're probably only going to get 2 bullets in max anyway. Because look, he's over here in a space about like this, and you just shot, and what happened? Your gun bounced up here to the side. And this second one here, that's only going to happen if, he was sliding slightly enough. I mean, if you were tailing him, you're lucky. Now, this is the point where I think the game's damn rigged. Because if this thing was accurate, I'm pretty convinced that people would be hitting shots about 1/50th as much of the time as they did. But whatever, maybe it's not. It's very hard to say without zooming everything in and doing slow-mo. But, you know, I can understand if they did that. I can understand if they made hits kind of magnetized towards people's bodies for the sake of the game. But I will say that when you turn aim assist off, it's like it stops doing most of that. And it becomes incredibly hard to hit, even when you seem to be aiming at the exact thing. And it is, even though people swear there's no magnetic aim assist, it's really like there's magnetic aim assist. So whatever, I played the game for years, there seems to be magnetic aim assist. Could be an illusion, but I will say this, that when somebody's sliding, there's next to no chance you'd ever hit them with anything, much less hit them with all 5 bullets. Barely even 1 bullet. If you're lucky to get that second bullet, and this is the maximum low recoil gun, God bless you, because you're also dealing with lag compensation and interpolation and processing time. So, whatever. There you go. You aren't going to hit those. So, what if I tap fire? Ooh. Now, by tap firing, given its fact that it's sliding across the screen, there's no real difference between the first and second, it looks like. I did get about 4 bullets in the same spot, instead of it bouncing up the second time. Did pretty well. Alright. God knows. Okay. So, instead of that, keeping in mind the Merc grip when you're on target seems to always reduce that. Actually, instead of any of that, I'm just going to switch over. See what the Merc grip does.
Reloading.
Apparently now I'm getting about a 3.5% boost in my movement speed, whether you can see it or not. What else it affects? Who knows? It's a mystery box this year. But here's the box. Now, as far as this ADS, I'm standing at about the same distance now. There's like maybe a reduction, but I think it is the hipfire recoil that at this point, this gun is so tight to begin with. I can't tell. Maybe it's doing something. Merc doesn't seem to be really doing jack shit on the hipfire on this gun. There are guns where it does, but whatever. That's just next to nothing. That doesn't matter. So if you're looking for hipfire on the Kilo, Merc over the 5mm doesn't seem to do jack shit. All right. Here we go. Oh, now it's bobbing again. This is like a full head's freaking distance off on the slow bob. Alright, whatever the case, here we go. Oh my goodness. Just, now, okay. This is the entire point of the Merc. 1 bullet, 2 bullets. But look at what just happened. This is how subtle this stuff is. And this is why this game has the potential to be the most excellent, epic game ever. And this is why these guys have to get this shit right. Look at this. These subtleties are poetry in motion. When they get these subtleties right, this is epic for anyone paying attention. And this is what the pros noticed. This is what I noticed. Look at this. 1 bullet, 2 bullets, 3 bullets, 4 bullets, 5 bullets. You have just gotten 4 bullets into a space where 2 would have hit otherwise. You've gotten 5 into a space where 3 would have hit otherwise. There is a drift. Now, realistically speaking, what this would mean is when somebody is sliding across the screen, whoosh, and you go to shoot, and you're like, oh man, I better leave my shot. And you do, and it's hard to tell because of the bullet velocity. You are going to get a 5 bullet sweep in the space of what would have otherwise been about 2 bullets. Some of those are going to hit because you have just literally doubled plus the number of bullets concentrated into the same area in the same amount of time. That's why the Merc is incredible. That's why they've GA'd the Merc out, because it is to my knowledge, one thing that does that. There is, some of the barrels may do it on certain guns. I tested a bunch of stuff. The only thing that ever, to my knowledge, did as much as the Merc is the compensator. When you stack every recoil control in the game, you will get the same general effect, and the Merc always improved it. I would have to go through and test every gun and pull the videos up, but the bottom line was that if you were looking for one single attachment that had the power to concentrate your bullets on the initial critical shots, it was the Merc foregrip. And given us the fact that that happens in a brief vertical recoil span of 1/5 of a second, there is no horizontal control, there is nothing that does it. And even to my knowledge, the compensator did not do that by itself. Although the compensator was much more powerful overall on a full magazine spread, the Merc still did more in that critical shot. To my knowledge, the single biggest critical shot recoil vertical control, which is all that even fucking matters, is the Merc foregrip. So, whatever. The problem for me is that I do not care about that because I can't get my damn shot on. I am trying to get the stupid shot. I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but that right there. When you actually go to aim in, and it's like, and you're sitting here trying to get the damn thing on point to aim at somebody's head, and you have no idea which direction it's going to go, it's enough to drive you insane. I do not want the gun doing it. I want total control over my aim. I want it to be like a laser. So, for me, I can sacrifice the Merc and go with the stupid other thing. The problem with all of this is that I do not know. I can skip the Merc. It's GA'd out anyway. It's too powerful. It's secretly broken. It's boosting movement speed. It's increasing hipfire accuracy. It's fucking incredible on critical shot. It's basically a mobile Rambo death machine grip. But that leaves me with the Ranger and the Commando. And the thing is, I do not know for sure what the Commando and the muzzle brake are actually doing, because I have tested both the horizontals on so many damn guns, and half of them are literally worse. The guns that it has actually improved incontrovertibly are the Holger, the MP7, the muzzle brake on some of the semi-autos and snipers. And that's about it. So I'm going to try the Ranger. Hipfire. Look at this incredible hipfire. You are literally aiming at somebody, possibly 45 feet away, 50 feet away, and could almost hit them with hipfire on an assault rifle. Incredible. Okay, anyway. Look at that. I mean, that is an increase, but compared to, like, say, a Scar or something, or an Odin, unbelievable. Alright. Okay, this is with the Ranger. Perfect aim stability. Given the range, I mean, it's next to no perceptible difference over the tactical. it's going to have, no, so this is the question, what's the recoil control? I'm going to go for it. Ooh, man, that's looking good. Oh, wow. Just look at this. Now, wait a minute. I'm not sure if I'm just tripping here. Is that all one gun spread? Oh, I think I just spaced out there for a second. Okay, I gotta figure out which one was which here. A bit late. Okay, here we go. Same range. Is feeling like it's drifting. So this Astro C40 controller, oh god, it's as much stick drift on a routine basis as a $20 junk controller. Okay, so I guess that was two different spreads. All right. Okay, multiple shots here. For some insane reason, the second shot seems almost worse than without it. There is, second shot seems almost worse without it. It's getting, there was the Merc. This was the Tactical. And this is the new Ranger. Actually, worse. Makes no sense whatsoever. It seems totally inconsistent. That is real. That's not because none of this is real. That is because it is just genuinely inconsistent. You got a little bunch up here. That's a big one. That's enough testing it, given the time to say no. So, why is it even doing that? Basically boils down to not being worth it every time. Okay, let's try that again now.
Viper 1-1 on a...
Much on point, a little bit of bob. Oh, okay. Flipping my noodle here again. Okay, this is just another case in point of the normal perceived function of this thing doing seemingly absolutely nothing. I mean, it's just, there's, if you can find any substantial difference, I'm going to have to do it again on a clean wall, because over here you saw the same pattern over and over. 2 shots, a giant jump, a complete compression of 5 into 3, and here you just see like just blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out of here. Start over with clean walls.
Stand down! It's a deadlock.
This is the same sad story. I cannot tell anybody who happens to ever watch this the number of times that I've had a gun, gone into even the smallest map like Shipment, been shooting at someone, in the kill camera seen bullets that look to be maybe a few inches at most to the left and right, bouncing left and right when on my end there seemed to be no cause of that. I mean, I could be mistaken. I went, okay, that's horizontal recoil, like Exclusive Ace and Drifter, and these people are telling people. Strapped on both horizontal recoil controls. Went back in. By any account, it was worse. But there is one gun that definitively, beyond any shadow of a doubt, should show what it's supposed to do by any normal 2020 account of this dumb game, and that's the MP7 that I'll be loading up in a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this back over on a clean wall. Now, again, this is why 400,000 times
Enemy
I
threats
have
in the AO.
posted
Weapons
all
hot.
over the internet and the community, what are these things supposed to be doing? Because the muzzle brake definitively does affect semi-autos. It is present on many of the semi-auto blueprints. It is present on a few of the LMG blueprints. The muzzle brake by an in real life IRL account is not really a muzzle brake. A muzzle brake is meant to be, at least to my knowledge, I am not saying I'm a gun expert, I am a smart cookie, I fired a few guns in my life. A muzzle brake is for front to back recoil. A true muzzle brake is this front to back motion of the gun because it beats into your shoulder. It beats into your body. A muzzle brake reduces that front to back recoil, which effectively, due to the physical dynamics and the bouncing, affects the other forms of recoil. That is not the same thing as compensator. A compensator, by any real life account, is not the compensator in this game. Compensators come in 15 plus different varieties that have different multi-angular, multi-vector compensation arrays that go up, to the sides, down below, front to back, at diagonals. That is a pure multi-vector compensator. A multi-vector compensator is kitted to the gun to control all those other directions, whereas a muzzle brake is pure, raw, front to back muzzle power. That is not what they put in this game. I don't know why they did that. I am not a master gunsmith. I do know enough to know that. So, whatever. But the few blueprints that feature a muzzle brake are on guns that, to my knowledge, do seem, there may be some junk ones in there. There are some god-awful, insanely bad gun blueprints. Just completely just look like junk slapped together. But there are quite a few different good gun prints. And those gun blueprints that have the muzzle brake, it does seem to affect, and many of them are semi-autos and a couple of the LMGs, to keep it on point. But aside from that, I just don't know. So anyway, here we go. Okay, what do I use? This is a tactical. All right. So perfect. Here's the Ranger.
They're almost down.
Okay. Maybe 10% decrease in overall vertical. Effectively useless. Oh my goodness, that first shot bounce. 1, 2. 1, 2. Oh, it looks like it's about the same. It really looks like it's proportional. But, okay. My walls over there were confusing. I really need to test this again. I'm honestly getting tired. But on the clean walls, even though I felt like I was flipping my noodle over there, on the clean walls, it is seemingly helping. You're getting a, really, it's about the same the whole way through. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in the space of 3. That is helpful on the Ranger. The stuff is not that far off. It's not as good as difference. The Ranger is decreasing the ADS. Given all that, the aim stability was negotiable. A 20% reduction in vertical recoil and increase in shots of 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 is really going to be helpful, I guess. But ADS time is the issue. I just don't know how much the ADS time is doing. Here's command. Okay, so where's Commando? Why is my first bullet down there? Okay, I got to figure out why my first bullet was down there. But 1, 2, big jump, 3, 4. Ah, these things just make no sense. Look at that. Just look. Just seems to be absolutely useless. Of all the guns, this Kilo's primary recoil. I mean, I'm just not even going to get into it. What I would want to see with either of these would be one, two, three. 3 shots in a space of about 4. So that's a big no. If that holds true, that's a big no. Alright, instead of that, again, pull this thing off. Okay, compensator. Gonna get off of all the aiming stability stuff. I really want the aiming stability, but for the sake of doing this test, we're gonna go ahead and put it in as the most powerful attachment in the game for anything with recoil, which is the compensator. The Merc may outdo it. Well, I shouldn't say most powerful. The overall effect. The Merc is right there with it. The Merc does a little bit more on the first few shots. But this one affects the ADS. Here's the ADS. Go ahead and squish this over the side a little bit. Now, you can see the bob. Already, you can see the bob happening with the compensator. One, two, three, four. Kind of heavy on the side. Lot of freaking compression there. Not really sure what I'm doing with the aim. It's because it go low here. I'm going to have to double check that aim stability thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. It still has a big jump between those two. In the same general space. Ah, God. It's just... Out of all of these, the Commando is by far the worst. At least on this stuff. Compensator is just kind of a... Typically what the Compensator does a big cloud. It's just this one's kicking up to the left. It's okay. I would not use either. Somebody fucking insane.
Stand by.
Alright, give him the muzzle brake a chance. Of all the guns, it looks like the muzzle brake would help. It would be the Kilo. All over the place bobbing. Here we go, let's... Oh my gosh. It's just, again, the stupidest thing I have ever seen in my life. I don't know what they were intending for these dumb things to do, but this is just... I guess this was 2 bullets down here in the space, which is about the same as either. It does seem to have, on this particular run, concentrated them. But then you got 3, 4. I mean, it's just like, literally, just like, just... for the most part, even if this was consistent with 2 right here, you'll be just as well off with 2 here because it would bounce up from the throat to the head or something. That little bit of bounce there is not going to probably hurt. I guess. I mean, I've really... there are different ways to look at that. I mean, I guess I would prefer for them to be on point, but... there's like no real perceivable left-right drift. You can see 1, 2, I guess. I need to get this thing. I've got to figure out what the freaking first 2 shots are doing. This gap right here. I mean, whatever it's doing here, this gap is just as bad. Giving me 2 side-by-side bullets here, I don't know that that's going to amount to anything. Honestly, it's just absolutely horrible. I can't tell that anybody knew what they were doing when they were programming any of this. It really just genuinely seems to be a shit fuck. Somebody needs to grab these Infinity Ward guys by the balls and say, what the fuck are these things doing? because your attachments are so broken, your stats are so completely garbage, your reliability and trustworthiness are so in the negative zone of minus world beyond any human comprehension that you need to be grabbed by the balls and freaking told, commanded, freaking tell us what this shit is supposed to be doing. Look at this. Just look at this absolute garbage. I mean, the inconsistency, I mean, like, what in the hell is this garbage? There is zero, in the critical shots, there is zero freaking aid to vertical alignment. There is zero vertical compression. In the overall freaking recoil pattern, there is next to zero freaking, I mean, just anything. If these things are supposed to be doing anything, I have tried and tried with the muzzle brake on these guns. Now, there is, contrary-wise, on the LMGs and some of the freaking semis, like I said, there is a definitive up to 50% reduction. Like when you take a marksman rifle or a sniper and you go, BAM! And it kicks up. It will instead go, BAM! And go to right here. So there are quite a few semi-marksmen and snipers that with a muzzle brake, when the gas kicks out and does that, it instead of going whoosh, it will go boosh right there. And you can immediately pull it back, boom, right there. Boom. That's it. That is the most effective thing I have ever seen the muzzle brake do. So, whatever. I am saying to hell with that. And compensator just is not doing it for me on aim stability, which is my top 3. So, that leaves me with the uselessness of the commando, the operator, or the tactical. The tactical, of course, being everyone's garbage attachment, does nothing, which it clearly does a ton of stuff. So what I need to do now is I'm going to pull out of this.
The enemy fought hard. Stand down.
Oh my goodness, I am up at 2 hours of this ridiculous testing on the very first gun in the game. It is unbelievable. Keeping in mind that this first gun in the game is considered to possibly be the new meta powerhouse. Sparrows is one of the top gun players in the world in these Battle Royale games. He keeps telling people it's all about hitting the shots, and they aren't listening. I don't know. I say this if anybody happens to listen to this on the record. I've got to check the ammunition types on the Growl versus the Kilo. The Kilo has something going on that when you go to hit people at an extreme distance, it is very powerful, it has low recoil, but when you actually go to hit, it is like you are shooting block pixels at them, that only the center of the block pixel registers. Whereas when you go to shoot somebody with a Growl, it is like you're shooting a needle with little pinpoints that hit exactly where you want them to. Something is up with it. Whatever they did when they programmed it. Okay, where was I? Alright. Okay, I'm doing the tactical versus the operator.
Team deathmatch. Enemy threats
One thing
in
we
the
may
AR.
never
Weapons
know
hot.
is as messed up as this game may be, it will never be as awful as Battlefield 5. And it is still the best shooter on the market. Well, I guess. The garbage junk tooth rot factor on it is enough to knock it out of all contention whatsoever with any game in the history of humankind. But, I don't know. Anyway, let's go. Alright, which level is this? this is tactical. Alright, tactical. Duplicate test. Ranger, if anybody's watching, Ranger is perfect OP's go-to attachment. Top 10 in the world on all consoles, as far as I know. Battle Royale or something. Literal 15-something KD in Blackout.
Reloading.
Oh, that Bob. I hate it. I just literally hate it. I just want that Bob to go away.
Low ammo.
Alrighty, here we go. Ranger. First off, there is total inconsistency, again, on a clean wall between the same Ranger grip on two different magazines. That's the way the rubberized grip tape is. It is absolutely the most inconsistent, insane thing. You literally have to test it over and over and over. No other attachments do what the rubberized grip tape does, from my personal experience. So, but at least on one of these, overall, you have nearly a 35% decrease in overall recoil. But when you get into what does that actually matter, look at this. This is the same as before. Basically, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It literally has worse recoil in general on the second shot than without it. One, two, three, four, all kinds of horizontal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess what you're seeing here is it's kind of smushing. It's smushing 4 shots into the space of 2, which I guess, you know, whatever. I just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. About the same space. Really inconsistent. And this is only getting 1, 2, maybe 3. This is getting 3 in the same window. So it is definitely smushing them. It's similar to the compensator. The compensator smushes them down into a little cloud. On a perfect gun, on a perfect gun, the muzzle brake takes it, goes boom, 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 boom. The compensator goes boom, 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 boom. This one is on the level of the compensator. It's smushing them down. It's getting 4 into this range, 4. The tactical didn't do that. It was more on point, but it's getting like a 1, 2, 3, and about the space 4. So, oh my goodness. This is all gun dependent, and you know, whatever. We're gonna go that route. There is really nothing else to do on that. If you were going to worry about that, going to worry about those few shots, you would probably... I'm just going to go ahead and throw this... rather than get a super reduction in that, I'm going to go for the bullet velocity to get them there more quickly. Because if, while anybody would happen to be looking at that, those shots aren't even going to matter if the bullet velocity is low, because by the time they actually hit, no foregrip, just a barrel. A little bit of bobble. I hate it, but whatever. Let's see what it does for me. Yeah, this right here is what the muzzle brake of the Commando should, in my opinion, be doing. No, there is, again, next to zero difference on the second shot. It's not even doing as much as the third and fourth shot, but it is keeping it much more vertical. Like, if you were to try to just aim and try to balance this as it's going up with this barrel, it would be much easier. So, whatever, it's getting it there faster, and with a slight little bit of left and right, get it there right where it's supposed to be, instead of that stupid stuff. I will say this. I'm, again, not a gun expert. But from my personal experience in these games, the muzzle brake and the Commando are most effective in similar vein to the marksman and sniper rifles when you use a long barrel. As in, if I was to strap on either of those at this point, I am pretty sure it would be much straighter. In fact, let's do that. Let's go right on ahead and do it. This should not affect any of that. This was a hip fire and ADS thing. It should not affect aim. So now I have a mid-range barrel. And this one. Mid-range barrel and muzzle brake. Ooh, it's so surprisingly stable. It's so weird. I don't think that's the same. Nope. Not even worth the time of day. For some reason, it seems more stable. Okay, mid-range barrel. This is why you're supposed to have stat bars that work, because nobody in their right mind has time to test stuff. If every stat had a basis in real life, we could all go to the gunsmith and we can consult these people. But they don't. You cannot take this stuff to a real gunsmith and say, what is this stuff doing? So these guys, whatever. Forget it. Basically equivalent of baloney. Alright, what are we using? Using mid-range barrel and the gun. Does not seem to be stable for some stupid reason. It is decent. It does seem to be decently more vertical. I mean, if you look at this, that was actually that is the point of the Commando. Whatever was just having the stupid muzzle brake, that thing it was just doing, went boom, 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 right up to there, and then went kicked over to the side as it went up. That's the point where you're supposed to kick it back yourself to the left and right. It sounds oxymoronic, but when it's attempting to stabilize, if you put in the extra stabilization, furthermore, if you pull down a little bit, which is the basic recoil of the gun, it would keep it like, I don't know if that's really like obvious. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4. You're getting 4 shots in a straight vertical line. And if you were to compensate for the predictive recoil of the gun by just pulling down a little bit as you move, like something like this, it would just like lock it in. That's what it does on the MP7. I'm not sure why the muzzle brake didn't do that. I just don't know. I don't think it's worth the time of day to even worry about it. I'm going to, for the sake of this, go ahead and put on the long barrel. Oh God, it's just a freaking literal splitting goddamn headache. Okay. I'm gonna go back to my favorite, which is the long barrel and the tactical. Wait, what was I using before? Oh, I had the 5mm. Ugh. Okay, that's not why I did that. Alright, I'm going to go to the long barrel and the muzzle brake. Let's see what it is.
Stand by for danger close.
2 hours and 20 minutes almost of gun testing. Here we go. Long barrel, muzzle brake. Let's see what it is. Nice clean spot. Oh, it's so much more stable for some reason, it seems. I think. Yes, this is looking pretty good. Here we go. Oh, it looks so much more. Why? This makes no sense. I swear, that thing just looked like it was shooting. God almighty. I think it's just, honestly, this may be, you know, I think I'm going to submit this to some people and see what they have to say, because this is just, that gun, when I was just shooting it, looked like it was going up in a nearly straight line of highest shot velocity, exactly the way it's supposed to. And look, it is absolutely horrible. The bullet registration that just happened on this wall is some of the absolute worst of anything that was put in there. It makes literal 0 sense. 0 cents. Absolutely zero. It makes no sense whatsoever beyond any comprehension of life itself. There is nothing in there that says that the aim stability should be improving. The thing should have been, it looked like it was going straight goddamn up. And then on the wall, it is the worst recoil pattern of anything that has happened in the entire fucking night. Look at it. It looks like it's just literally going straight up. I swear, I genuinely think that it's just goddamn motherfucking broken. It makes absolutely no sense. There is no vertical alignment between the first and second shots that has been there the entire night. The entire third and fourth shots are just spaced out, same as ever. There is no decrease in any of this. The Commando actually did this, which was incredible. This one, the visible recoil, does not match the hit registration. I swear, I think this is like right at the critical crux of what people are saying is going wrong. They feel like their visible pattern does not match the actual hit registration. I don't have the time of day for it. I'm not going to figure out their stupid goddamn broken attachments. I just do not have time to understand why their stuff is so bass-ackwards this year. I do know that I'm just not even going to say it. Not even saying it. If at some point in the future these guys get their shit together, I will purchase another video game. That's it. And until such time, I'm going to harass them night and day, as long as this game has life in it, to fix the broken garbage that they sold everybody. I paid literally close to $200 for this game. $200 bucks. When Infinite Warfare came out, I bought a drone. That drone worked for 4 flights. Oh, it's so stable. It does not look like it matches. I swear to God. I think there's something like magically happening. Okay. There is no critical shot recoil correction. If anything, it is actually worse. There is a seeming complete discrepancy between what I'm seeing visually. I would have to compare it frame by frame and on the screen. There is no benefit whatsoever to the horizontal recoil. It makes no sense whatsoever. It just literally makes no sense. This is what helped. The very single attachment that has been notoriously criticized, the most garbage attachment, the useless attachment that none of the pros use, has been the only reliable thing at this point. As I mentioned before, if the Commando, I think that the Commando and possibly the muzzle are doing some stuff under flinch and fire in the game. But when there is that much of a total fucking pileup of inconsistency in this freaking gun, something is wrong. There is something wrong with this. So, all of that said, here's the gun. Sprint to fire. Sprint to fire. Total aim correction. Total aim correction. Next to no recoil. Scout combat optic. Now, this is an incredible fucking loadout to take into core multiplayer. Be right back. Okay, this is an incredible gun to take into multiplayer, but there is an extreme problem. If you were to go into hardcore, where you're listening for gunfire, or realism, where you're listening for gunfire, anything where your gunfire shows up on the minimap, Warzone, Plunder, whatever, where it shows up on the minimap, unless you're wanting to attract people with the flashing of gunfire, or if people are actually at the skill level of reading the compass, where they're seeing you're flashing on the compass regardless of anything, this is not something you want to be using. The numero uno thing that you're going to see is people targeting you. And if you have not played Call of Duty enough at this point to know how real that is, to know how people wall creep, audio whore, minimap, freaking... When this game came out with no minimap, literally, it was beyond night and day. the total incapacity of the Call of Duty player base to listen to audio, to identify anything, or do anything other than just sit there and frickin' sound whore was beyond comprehension. I went in the very first game and pulled in attack choppers. Within a few days was pulling in gunships. It was ridiculous. The moment that the mini-map was put back in, you could literally watch the people playing by the mini-map as if it was some stupid, just idiotic Pac-Man, Pong, Atari game with zero comprehension of any terrain, any elevation, any environmental factors. They would literally bounce off walls reading the mini-map. And they still do. So, anyway, big pile of junk. I don't want to be really ugly if anybody's listening to this, but I play Plants vs. Zombies. There's no mini-map in Plants vs. Zombies. There's no unsuppressed red dot gunfire. You have to actually listen to the audio. You have to actually know the map. You actually have to look for people. This is a game that 5-year-olds play. When, garbage-ass fucker from FaZe, who's been around since the dawn of FaZe, came out and said, I just want my mini-map. What a fucking just total no-skill bunch of garbage. If you consider skill to be slide jumping, slide canceling, lag comp whoring, mini-map red dot reading for $1 million, I don't have the time of day for you. I'll go frickin' fish. I don't need it. Anyway, whatever. The thing you're going to want on this gun is compensator. So, given as the aim is now pinpoint accurate for the most part, given as that you don't necessarily need a frickin' barrel on it at this point, you would in Warzone. I'm going to drop this. That'll take the sight off. You now have two options for suppression. This has no built-in barrel. Oh, it does have built-in barrel for sound suppression. Oh, I forgot. Now, okay. This is one of the guns with the built-in sound suppression barrel. Alright, let's see. Sound suppression and bullet velocity. Okay. Sound suppression and bullet velocity. Sound suppression and bullet velocity with an ADS reduction. Doesn't look like it's that much, if that's correct. Or sound suppression and damage range with an ADS reduction. I would not use the lightweight. That damage range reduction is, to my knowledge, maybe 25%. It is absolutely horrible. The only time you would possibly use that lightweight suppressor is on a submachine gun. Tactical suppressor, it still does that stuff, but the ADS reduction is much. So, between a tactical and a monolithic, not a whole lot of difference. The monolithic is going to increase the damage range. It's a higher level unlock. Sometimes on certain guns, it seems to be worse. But between both of those, the Kilo is already high range. So unless you're in Warzone, I think that more than likely your best bet is going to be the Whisper barrel with the bullet velocity. And there is something up with these things, which is that the these barrel attachments that do this stuff have typically done, from everything I've tested, a hidden recoil stabilization where they're keeping it more vertical. So when you hear that sound, it goes, instead of going, it's like, they are keeping it more stable as it goes up horizontally. It's like there's less, it just basically kneels it. Okay, so here we go. No sight. Throw this thing on. Yep, there you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. If you see this thing right here where it's going straight up, it is like it is just literally doing what the other stupid horizontal recoil controls were supposed to do. The thing here is that you are not seeing, there's still a massive gap. It's actually somehow, and this seems to be common to a lot of them, like when you throw the monolithic on, it's like when they're pumping that sound thing, that it causes more jump up, but it keeps it straighter. So this has done this repeatedly. Like if you look over here at these two, but you're getting that sound suppression. I honestly don't know, and I just do not have the strength inside of me at this point. After I've been testing this for 2.5 hours on one gun, I do not know if I could take testing this vertical recoil thing. The bottom line to me is that if you need, well, actually, I am going to test it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to block that. I'm going to put a monolithic on. I'm going to go ahead and test it. No point, just go ahead and test it. This is why when you start throwing in sights that spontaneously change the recoil patterns, even though they say nothing about it, it gets really old. Nobody in their right mind could predict a bunch of broken, stupid stuff that there is just no way to predict. That's why it's supposed to have accurate stat bars. Okay. One clean wall space. One, two, a little bit tighter, a little bit more spaced, not a whole lot of difference. So one is improving the bullet velocity, one's improving the damage range. Kilo's already long range, so I'll try one more here, which is the tactical. Come on, burned out here. Oh my god, what a just total joke. This feels much speedier for some reason. It feels like I'm just literally like flying along. Does it say anything about that? Nope. Oh well, whatever. This is exactly how people figure out this stuff is freaking stupid. Okay, a little clean spot on the wall. Where is the clean spot? Alright, I'm just gonna try it right there. It's really bad for contest. Whatever. Seems, even the barrel seems to be, everything's like zippy. Tactical has made everything zippy. But the stability seems a little looser. Oh, what bullshit. Oh, God. Well, it's very clear, despite the mix-up of bullets there, that it is having a giant gap between the two. For some reason, the suppressor is increasing the second shot recoil. That's another term is second shot recoil. Second shot recoil is way off. So, whatever. You gotta have a suppressor, you gotta have a suppressor. And if I was going to use a suppressor, I would use the one that has the built-in velocity, the lower velocity seems to be the worst thing in the fucking game. I would not even remotely use something that's low velocity. I mean, at 3 feet, okay. If you were at even 10 feet with lower velocity, it just seems to all go to shit. It shouldn't do that, but it does. So, okay, my point here is the final icing on the cake with the gun. Since the aim is now on point, removing the sight and using the stupid damn cursor should not make that big of a difference. Because now that it's on point, like a true Call of Duty pro, although I do not do this myself, I cannot stand it, I want to see my target. If I was desperate for this attachment slot, you could now remove it, and if the gun has any decent iron sights, you could do this. And the gun will be super. ADS is superior. It has improved the ADS. I now have insane sprint to fire, insane ADS, insane stability, built-in suppression, bullet velocity increase, but I'm using an iron sight. The reason I'm using the iron sight now is because with the last thing on the burner being the sound suppression, the bullet velocity, it was to play it more so. So I should now just do this. This would be a pro technique. Hopefully I can manifest something pro level. Down a little.
Low ammo.
You have a super powerful long range gun. Nothing. ADS is incredible. You're freaking. Everything is good, and it's a long range damage gun. Nothing has impeded the damage on it. In fact, now has higher velocity. And if you wanted to improve the damage range, you could switch over to monolithic instead without using another slot and keep everything. So, that said, first off, if you're going to drop anything to need the sight, what would you drop? I would drop the 5 milliwatt because number one, it's not comp. Even though it's decreasing the hitbox, I'm not intending to be using the hitbox that much. Even though it's decreasing the sprint to fire, it's a quick gun. I could use the optic for longer range. If I was not going to drop that, the tactical should. This was the whole point of testing. Or I don't know for sure what the stock is going to do, but the stock was better. The stippled grip is reducing the ADS and sprint to fire, and its comp. I probably would just drop the laser to put on the optic. That's about it. If I was going to drop anything to go fully loaded, which I would not do at this point, given trying to keep the gun in top shape, I would just use the munitions or scavenger or something. That would be that. There are some guns you can use fully loaded on, like the Bison. Okay, enough of that.